Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors into the elders, apostles, and bishops, the GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach and edifying peace and blessings. To you, sincere Akim, wa Akwat in his household of faith. My name is Yeshaya from the GMS Arizona Church in Ottawa, Ratazah. Gonna make an edifying lesson going into, with the spirit that the elder apostle Gabar and elder Shalakia Gabar Yahawada were going into earlier in the daily live stream lesson, man. They were really going into Esau Edom, and how the tides are turning for this devil. And this actually I want to start with Ecclesiastes chapter 1. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Chapter 10. So I got crazy brain fog today, man. I might be dehydrated or something like that. Drinking regular water bottles, man. Your regular so-called purified water. You gotta add a pinch of salt, man. And I had a hard lift in Salakia. If I'm a little, short, on the slower side today. Babu Kushai, bear with me. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As a judge of the people is himself, so are his officers." And Esau Edom is the biggest coward to exist, man. He is the biggest coward, man. He has no morality. He has no backbone. And that goes back and even into, in thy womb there are two matters of people. Esau Edom is cruel. He rules with a rod. Whereas Jake is compassionate and long-suffering and has mercy. And why is that? Because our Lord, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, has mercy. And the Lord is compassionate and merciful. We are fashioned that of after our power. And you could see that clear divide. And that divide is going to mean everything when all hell is breaking loose. And these women are going to be able to see that. They're going to be able to see that this man is about his bearings and this man is totally fucking nuts, okay? Because Esau Edom behind closed doors, man. Esau, they're all moes. They're all colorful people behind closed doors, man. And Esau is weak, cry, woe is me type of spirit all the damn time, man. And if he doesn't get what he wants, he whines about it. And that even goes back even into, Genesis, the 4th chapter. This is Genesis chapter 4 and verse 6. Honestly, the first 4 books of Genesis will tell you a whole lot about Esau Edom, man, because that even goes all the way back unto that time. It says Genesis chapter 4 and verse 6. It says, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen?" Because Esau Edom is a descendant of Cain. It says, "If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? But if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." Basically saying, like, if you did good, I love this precept in the NLT, Salakia, for once. This is Genesis chapter 4 and verse 6. In the NLT, it says, "Why are you so angry? The Lord asked Cain, why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master." And this devil is unable to do so. He is the son of the wicked. How the scriptures, break man into 3 parts. The sons of the Lord, the sons of man, and the sons of the wicked. And this devil is the seed of the sons of the wicked. On that left-hand side, they care not whether they, violate the laws of the Lord. They care not whether they blaspheme the Lord. They care not of anything that has to do with the scriptures. They're a perverse nation and perverse people. And during the times where, the Lord, rules in the kingdom of man, when you got hell breaking over all over and the Lord sending them Michael the archangel, to guide the elect, the angel isn't coming to guide a bunch of devils. The angel is coming to guide the children of light through this very dark time. And the women are really going to be able to see that. They're going to be able to see that because, those men are going to shine bright in that day, man. The scriptures will talk about in Job how they will liken a man unto fine gold. more precious than fine gold. And that's the thing, Akim. We lived in a society seeing the wicked win for so long. Maybe not having your best way with women all the time, and we're in hell, man. We are in our captivity. We're in judgment. The Lord was displeased. Lord still is displeased. With the things that Jake is doing. And in the last days, the Lord shall establish this word back on this earth, man, and bring us back into our heritage, for we may serve the Lord and understand, the times that we're in. And now we're preaching that, the elders and apostles, we're preaching that, beginning with elder apostles on down, and their elders started preaching that good tidings, man. Follow the Lord, and this is what's to come. But, and this is also, preaching against kings and nations and peoples. And we're prophesying against Esau, Edom, man. The tides are really turning for this devil. And you can tell, the apostles said something heavy. They said, you can tell a nation's being conquered by their women, because with women being the fact that, one thing a woman knows how to do is survive, and they have a, they're not the highest level spiritual, but they do have a conscience. They can catch a vibe, and that vibe's moving away from Esau, Edom, man. Because when all hell breaks loose, they're not going to be able to do anything, okay? And a majority of them are going to be prepared to that slaughter, man. They're just going to be getting totally turned out. This is Job chapter 27, and starting at verse 13. In the NLT, it says, "This is what the wicked will receive from the Lord, for is their inheritance from the Almighty. They may have many children, but the children will die in the war or starve to death. Those who survive will die of plague, and not even their widows will mourn them." And not their widows will mourn them. Their women are going to be prepared to leave these men, because, they're going to be trying to find Jake, and that's already been happening. You got that snow bunnies trend. If you brothers don't know what that may be, you could look it up on the Urban Dictionary. Ultimately just white women that really like black men, But really, it's going to be Jake, because it's not just going to be Southern Kingdom, man. They're going to be looking for the spirit of Jake, okay? Even the brothers that look like speckled birds, brothers that look like the so-called white man, but really, they're the tribes of Israel. They're going to be looking for that spirit at the end of the day, man. And it's going to show very clearly. The Lord is going to, instill his spirit in his men, and that's why, we must stay spiritual, man, because this is a highly, highly spiritual thing. The scriptures say, thinking not strange the fiery trials and which you may endure. A lot of these things are teaching us things and programming us in a righteous manner, so that when these times flip, we ain't gonna be totally without, because the Lord has prepared us, to receive that spirit in that time, to stand boldly. The Lord is literally, creating within us a stable and suitable, temple for him to put that spirit in the end times, to be able to stand strong, with all the heavy things that are going to be, put in front of us, man. That the Lord is creating our temples in our spirit like that right now. But this is verse 15. It says, those, actually that was it that I wanted to get on that. This is Ezekiel, I think it's 22. Overturn. It's Ezekiel 21 and 27. It says, and I'll start at the verse. Yeah, I'll start at just 27. It says, "I will overturn it, and it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, and I will give it to him." Give it him. And that's that translation of the kingdom, man. The Lord's going to overturn this society. He's going to overturn it. The Lord's going to totally set up new management here, man. Overturn. We got to get that word, man. Ezekiel 21 and 27, the word overturn. And that goes into sit. Salakia. I swear, every time I kick on a video and this dog just starts wanting to act the hell up, man. Can't wait till we get out of here. Like, straight up, this is hell. Anyways, 21 and 27, Salakia. The word overturn, okay, and that goes into the word avah, the Hebrew word, and it means to distort, to ruin. The Lord's gonna bring this place to ruins, and it is a derivative of the word ahava. It says to bend, to twist, to distort, to be bowed down, all right, to do perversely. So the Lord's really gonna do this nation pervert. The Lord's gonna really totally twist this shit up and turn it out, man. The Lord's gonna overturn it. He's gonna bend it. When you bend something, you completely shift the direction of whatever that thing's going. So if you have a straw and you bend that straw, depending on how much you bend it, you change completely the trajectory of how that line travels. Like an airplane. Esau Edom thinks that he has his coordinates set in stone. He thinks that he has this MOTB and this B system, going out, like an airplane that's ready to take flight. But, if you bend the line or change the trajectory of an airplane, even, just a few inches, you can end up in a whole different fucking place. And that's what the Lord's going to do. He's going to bend it. He's going to bend it and bend it. He's going to overturn it until what? It says until he come whose right it is, and I will give it to him. And that ultimately is Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. The Lord's going to take back this earth, man. He's going to take back, he's going to set up the kingdom of Yahweh Shai, man. An everlasting kingdom. And he's going to do that. He's going to do Esau Edom, man. And we see that happening now. Brothers. So, let us be spiritual and prepared for these times, man. Brothers being tested on a daily basis with hell and all kinds of just unfavorable things, man. It could just be a matter of you stubbing your toe 5-6 times a day, and it's like, what the fuck, am I, like, what is going on, It could be a matter of, you getting a paper, and I'm just speaking hyperbolically, but brothers know what I'm talking about, man. This is terrible, man. The elder brother Tazabah of the GMS Arizona camp, he pointed out, one thing, brothers 21 getting white hairs, man. The Lord is really creating a work within every brother, and if you're around bros a lot, you can see that in brothers, man. You look at that brother, you like, damn, that brother looked like he just got finished with 5, 6, 7 battles, and he's got a whole different spirit to him. He's got a whole much more stern warrior spirit to him, man, because the Lord's preparing us for this final battle, man, at the spiritual war, the final conquest to overtake and to have success, let us gird up for battle, man, and within all that, these women, man, they gonna be turning on Esau Edom, man. They're gonna be looking for Jake. Their kingdom is over. These devils are through, man. But hey, it was a little bit of a more impromptu lesson. I pray it was edifying. I want to lastly give all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, B'Shem Yahweh Shai, B'Shem Chakwadash, Shalom.